Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Macha podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Abhay Rangan. He is a TEDx speaker. He's an animal activist. He is the founder of GoodMylk, which is one of India's largest plant-based product manufacturing company. And thank you so much for being here. You're also a Forbes 30 under 30. So congratulations on that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Abhay.
Hey, thanks, Abhishek. Very kind of you to say all that. I'm just excited to be here and chat more.
Fantastic. So, Abhay, what got you into a vegan lifestyle? And, what is a vegan lifestyle for people who do not understand the whole concept of veganism or a vegan lifestyle? Because there's a lot of misconceptions about what they can eat and what they cannot eat, or what is the whole point of doing this? So if you can explain how a person can lead a vegan lifestyle and what was your journey into this?
Sure. So I'll answer your second thing first, what veganism stands for. So being vegan simply means to the rational extent possible, you're not going to consume animal products, right? And of course, there's a limit there. For example, animal products and the usage of animals is all pervasive in our lifestyles today, from like the rice we eat, which is grown through using animals in farming, to other products that we consume. But I think there's this sort of limit where you can establish and say, as long as this product contains an animal ingredient, I'm not going to consume it. And it's not some sort of fanatic desire to just avoid animal products, right? There's a reason for it. And my reasons at least happen to be, I don't want to cause harm to animals insofar it is rationally possible. And that limit keeps changing over time, right? For example, today, a lot of medicines are tested on animals, a lot of farming happens with animals and so on, places where we can't control it. But where I can control it is if I look at a product and know the ingredients and think, okay, there is no dairy or meat or eggs or honey in this product, I'm not going to consume it. But that's one aspect, food. There's also other aspects. I don't want to use leather, silk, fur, wool, things like that, right? So veganism is the mode of sort of practicing veganism, although veganism itself is this philosophy where you try to reduce your harm that you cause to animals by limiting by not consuming animal products to the rational extent possible. That is sort of how I would define it. There are other better definitions, I think, more eloquent, simpler ways to put it. But I like to nitpick on the finer details. My parents turned vegan first. Actually, we were always vegetarian, but I think my dad made the connect. So we live near Sadananda Nagar, right, which is sort of close to Kalyan Nagar.
Correct.
And there we have a few people who farm cows. They do dairy farming, and these cows always walk in front of our road. And I think as a family, we started becoming more and more like considerate of these animals, because in the summer they'd be very thirsty, etc. So we kept a water bowl in front of the house. I think my dad saw that all the cows who came and drank water were all female and they were all pregnant. And that is when we started really questioning, what happened to the male cows? What's really going on in this industry? And he did a little more looking up of what happens in the dairy industry, and we were very shocked. I think a lot of what happens is an enormous amount of cruelty on the mother cow, the economics of the industry don't support a very ethical way to treat cows. You have to have the cow be pregnant or having given birth in order for her to lactate, and only female mammals lactate. So male cows are useless in the industry. And after cow, because she's impregnated so often and she's forced to sort of produce a lot of milk, she's not going to produce milk as long as she would naturally. So her span of doing this is much shorter as well, which means after she stops producing milk, what really happens to her? It's not, where's the space for people to keep the cow after she stops lactating, right? There's maybe slaughter, abandonment, a bunch of issues there. And we realized that it's we were vegetarian we started because of religious reasons, but we soon sort of justified that using rational reasons, saying, okay, we're not contributing to animal cruelty, but we couldn't apply that logic to dairy farming and say we're okay with this anymore. So that's how we stopped consuming dairy products and all animal products in general, because we just couldn't. If you're buying from some industry, you're actually paying for its survival, for its thriving. And the first step really is a boycott, and that's what we did.
Absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. So did you see, once you moved, you were pretty young when you became vegan, but did you see a clear change when you adopted this kind of lifestyle in terms of just being more sensitive to life, or just being like a little more active, or not having lethargy, because dairy is associated with lethargy as well sometimes. So did you see these subtle changes that you wouldn't normally notice after becoming vegan?
It's hard for me to comment on any physical changes because I was a teenager going through puberty, right? Like a lot of changes were happening anyway. But I can tell you what happened in terms of like my makeup, right? I think I started questioning a lot of things I took for granted, which was one of it itself was my relationship with religion, for example, changed quite drastically after I turned vegan. My relationship with food, for example, my family wouldn't eat mushrooms before we turned vegan. And then we were like, wait, this is not an animal, and it's not a sentient thing. So we started eating mushrooms. My mom, like before we turned vegan, wouldn't touch mushrooms, and now like her favorite thing is like mushroom
Yeah,
Manchurian.
even my mom
So
hates
what was
mushrooms. Like,
it?
yeah, I don't know
same
what's.
here, actually.
Yeah, I mean, even before we went abroad, like, mom would never allow mushrooms inside the house. I'm like, mom, this is mushrooms.
What's with mushrooms?
But we would go out and eat like mushroom Manchurian and all these kinds of things. It would be normal, right? Like, but yeah, I can
Yeah.
completely understand what you mean. Yeah.
So our sort of lens of looking at the world moved from what we were taught to really what felt rational to us. And I think it's different for different people. But like the general consensus is there on what is rational, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we started looking at everything. And I think it led to a lot of like secondary decisions in my life. For example, like dropping out of college isn't very conventional.
That's huge for an Indian. That's huge for a Bangalore engineering boy to drop out. That's like, oh, you're a black sheep in the family. You dropped out. That's the kind of.
But surprisingly, like my parents encouraged it. They were like,
Yeah.
I mean, my dad's a PhD from IIT, right? So we have a lot of we were a very academic family. But for them to accept that, you can still make your livelihood outside of this, based on what you're passionate about, etc. I think that also came from a place of rationality, because if we were still thinking from the place of what we were taught, then we'd be like, hey, what is all this? Don't live college. Don't do your degree, get a job.
Go for masters.
Yeah, so it impacted everything. I think even now, as a family, it has changed a lot of what we do. I think we're closer as a family because we understand that there's sort of a larger goal we're trying to accomplish. My dad retired from his job in telecommunications and is now running his own vegan company, and they make vegan mridangams and tablas. We're classical musicians.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah, so he's the only person on the planet that does it. So I keep telling my dad that he built a monopoly business, and there's a lot to learn from him on that.
Wow. So do they use like jackfruit kind of base, or is that because normally they use animal cow leather? Is it? What do they normally use for?
Yeah. They use like 3 types of animal skin and all that. Like I think cow, buffalo, goat, and it's kind of a very cruel process. Because like contrary to popular belief, all these instruments aren't made as byproducts of animal slaughter. Animals are slaughtered for that purpose and raised for that purpose, right? So it's also like it's a sort of shift there. We assume that things are not as bad as they are, but looking it up helps us understand that better. So now my dad does that, and we're not an entrepreneurial family, as we're all poets and academicians, and that's our background. So my dad and I are both sort of first generation entrepreneurs doing stuff in the plant-based vegan space. So it changed our whole trajectory as a family. So a lot.
Fantastic. I didn't know the mirdangam because I used to play mirdangam. Like, it might be shocking for a few people, but I used to play it when I was young. We are from a Brahmin family ourselves. So it was like we had to pick up an instrument, and mirdangam was offered. But I didn't know that it was made of like cow leather, and I thought it was more like jackfruit based kind of a thing. But it's surprising that
I knew it was more.
Oh, is it? Okay. Wow, it's crazy.
The wood is jackfruit, of course, I think.
Yeah.
But the skin, the head itself.
Yeah.
Oh. No, it's also crazy how the Indian culture portrays itself as like a very compassionate, like a culture, but in the background there are so many levels to this, right?
Yeah.
Like especially with dairy, no one actually thinks it's cruel, everyone thinks, okay, dairy is just like part of the culture.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is just very smart marketing, right? People don't want to ask questions that they don't want the answers to. So you can sort of slip it in under the rug and then market sort of the what you want others to perceive or benefits of the product, and you want them to have like a minimal touch to the conscience, and that sort of, I think the dairy industry is like a great understanding or a great lesson in how to do good marketing.
Exactly.
Successfully fooled generations of people.
Yeah, put this happy picture of this cow. That's very sad. That's like the main picture they put to advertise milk, right?
Yeah, a picture of a happy cow with her calf and then roaming in the fields. First of all, where is the field? And second of all, there is no happy calf. So there's multiple levels.
This is like really funny. Yeah.
Abhay, so how did you take your passion for veganism to a business? Like I've read, you started this with your mom. She was making peanut curd at home, and you were going around Bangalore selling this. So how has your journey been? So first identifying your shift from becoming a vegetarian to a vegan, and then taking it one step further to becoming, a businessman in the same field. How did you find the gap in the market, and how has your journey been?
Right, that's a good question. We didn't design this to be a business, really. I think it came from a lot of desire for impact. So, excuse me. I actually became an activist first. I did a lot of animal rights activism. Initially started off with volunteering with a bunch of other organizations. And then I started my own. It went very well, up to I turned vegan when I was 13. So up to 16, 17, I was doing a lot of activism, launched a nonprofit as well. So it was then I was always an ambitious kid, and I wanted to do more. And it made sense to work in the space of animal rights, because we always talk about how to impact 1 billion people. That's sort of all these tech companies are like, we're going to empower the next billion users. That's a very common thing you hear. I was like, where's a trillion lives opportunity, right? And that is present in animal agriculture. I think more than 2 trillion animals are killed every year, both marine and land animals, right? And it's a massive number. I think it's more, it's like higher than the number of stars in our galaxy. Such a huge number. I can't even my brain cannot understand what a trillion is. It's just so big of a number. You see it in dollars and you're like, okay, but this is trillions are like what, the market cap of gold is,
exactly. And physical beings being killed. It's not just imaginary assets, it's physical things roaming the planet that are getting killed. Trillions of them. My God. Oh.
Right, and a lot of it is marine life. I think land animals are killed, I think 65, 70 billion, I think, per year. I think that's the number. But with land animals, we measure them by the number of bodies, right? But with marine animals, we measure them by the kg. It is just such an elimination or suppression of their personhood. I think anybody who is sort of really looked at documentaries about the ocean or
Seaspiracy. Did you see Seaspiracy recently?
I didn't watch Seaspiracy yet. I tend to not watch these documentaries anymore because they just make me angry. And I'm like, I'm already vegan, so please leave me alone. I don't want to watch it.
It's horrible, bro. It's horrible. You know where it is going. Yeah, it is pretty bad. Yeah.
Right. And then I realized I wanted to do more work in this space simply because of the sheer potential for impact. And it's like there's this inherent understanding that if you want to do maximum good in the world, one way to do it is maximize the amount of good things you do. The other way to do it is minimize the amount of bad things you do. And I feel like being vegan and then doing more work on top of that is like sort of a good combination of both, where you're minimizing your harm and then maximizing your good. Impact, ultimately, when you die, you want to have like a net positive. Not that I believe in an afterlife, but I believe in a good conscience. And when I'm there, I want to be happy that I did all this. So absolutely. That was the impetus. And then the activism thing turned into, so we couldn't scale it beyond a certain point because of the constraints of nonprofits, right? There's like, you depend on philanthropy, you depend on donations, you depend on the goodwill of a bunch of volunteers. But I wanted to do something more structured and formal and scalable and sustainable. That's when the idea of like starting a for-profit was toying in my mind. Was toying with in my mind, and I was kind of an anti-capitalist before all of this.
Really?
Yeah, like I did a lot of virtue signaling against it, and then one day someone came to me during like one of these events. We were like always near MG Road, Brigade Road, talking about veganism to people, like handing out leaflets. I had like a VR headset, and like if you wore it, it would put you inside a slaughterhouse and you could see what's happening and stuff. So I was doing all of this one day, and someone told me, like, it's easy to talk about being vegan, but where are the alternatives, And I didn't have a good answer at that point. So that was sort of the start. I went back home, talked to my mother, and we decided to do something. And then, it scaled on its own. I think what has only prevented us from being bigger than we are is I don't come from a business background. I don't have a lot of knowledge. And a lot of it has been learning from scratch. And thankfully, we now have investors, good team members. So that's really what led the growth of the company.
That's crazy. So where do you see this going? Like, what do you see as the future of vegan products in India, and how big is the industry going to be for like entrepreneurs who want to get into this space?
I think there's no hard numbers at this point. I think the space is so early that we haven't seen like any large exit in India, etc. Right? So hard to quantify it per se, but I'm willing to bet that, or at least already bet that my career is going to be in the space, and a lot of personal risk I'm taking when I'm saying this. I think it's going to be very big. And it's the how big it can be simply as large as animal protein is as an industry, right? We meat, eggs, milk. People are consuming animal protein, fats, animal nutrients from animals in all different forms and shapes and structures. And I think the plant-based industry, or at least the alternative protein industry, because plant-based is one pillar. There's also other things like lab-grown animal products. There's mushroom,
like Beyond Meat.
So all of those combined, I think is the industry can simply be as big as animal products as an industry is.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
It's huge.
That's like massive. Yeah, that's massive. Oh, so there's a common misconception, right? Like people who are vegetarian or vegan, if they don't, like especially vegan, at least when you're vegetarian, you can drink milk. They think, oh, it's good for you. It has protein. It has calcium. That's what it's been sold as normally. But there's always a thing that where do vegans get their proteins from? So this is a common thing. I have arguments with my friends about, oh, chicken, there's 15-20 grams of protein, but where do you get your protein from? So, and I tell them peanut butter sandwich is 20 grams. Like, why don't you do some research on it? Like, so is that something that it's difficult to explain to people, why people are not taking this up more seriously about, the diet point of view, or, just understanding that even plant protein is, high in kind of protein content?
Sure. I think, there are some genuine concerns perhaps, and we can always address them, but a lot of this is simply resistance to change, right? Veganism is one of those things where you have to make a personal effort. And it's not the same as clicking a petition online where like, save this kid, save this forest, where there's no effort attached to the sort of impact you want to do. So I think we're all, myself included, very resistant to change, very set with my habits. And it takes a little bit of a deep sort of transformation from within to even like accept that change is needed. So we try to find excuses for all of it. I think a lot of it, sure, I think, all of these concerns have some basis in sort of like some reality. You've heard from somewhere that plant-based protein is very high, or there's not as much density, whatever. And, you sort of take that and then form these arguments. And, I think a lot of athletes, super athletes today, prove that it's very possible to be plant-based and very healthy and perform at the top of your sport, right?
Exactly.
Very much possible. Although I think, as a person as well, I don't really track my protein intake. I'm like, bro, I'll have my masala dosa and, my rice, and I'll be happy, I think, you want to measure your nutrients at that kind of level when you're trying to bulk up over, and there's a different way you have to eat then, right? But as like normal people, I'm happy with my body. I'm not trying to have a six-pack or whatever. Like, I'm happy with my dosa, idli, chapatis. You get a lot of what you want. But I do think, vegans in general, it's good to be conscious of what you're eating. It's good to take supplements if you think that you're not getting it enough from your diet. Like I take B12 supplements.
Exactly. It's a common kind of a deficiency that normally people see in vegans, like B12 normally.
Sure. And I think if you're in urban lifestyles as well, like, we clean our house with Dettol every day. We live in such sterile environments where, we don't necessarily find the type of bacteria that produce vitamin B12. So best to supplement wherever wherever you think that there's a problem. And it's always good to talk to, a dietitian or a nutritionist once. Not a dietitian, I think that's not a good word. A nutritionist, right? Someone who can help you achieve your goals that way. And, it's as simple as thinking what's a balanced diet for you, and then just getting it. People say supplements aren't natural. Like, bro, light bulbs aren't natural. Living in apartments is natural. and so much of what we consume today isn't like quote unquote natural. And what is natural isn't always good. Like H1N1 is natural. Fever is natural. The plague is natural. Tsunamis are natural. Like then we go beyond this misconception of natural, unnatural. Just do what feels right for your body, and just consult some of the science around it. You should be okay. I think most people can be very healthy on a vegan diet.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people who generally say like vegan diets don't have protein, they think they're going to become like really skinny or something,
Yeah.
They're really concerned about it.
See, they don't work out, number one, but still they want protein. I don't know, like what sort of, they're just normal people who are sitting, in front of a desktop and working the whole day, 9 to 5. And they say, I'm not getting enough protein. Come on, man. Like, it's like, just be normal, right? Like, yeah. It's crazy how.
The other problem is, I think a lot of the problems we're facing today is like an excess of things, right? We're eating too much of certain things.
Correct.
That it's just this inequality in the world where so many people have so much resources, and like the bottom half of the world does not consume nearly as much as the top half, right? So I don't think the problem is that the world is deficient in anything or plant-based diets in general. I think in many cases people are eating too much of sugar, too much of fat, imbalance of a lot of things. So even when consuming animal products, even like assuming they're a wholesome source of nutrients, you still have to limit your intake on everything, really. You can't just say, because protein is there, I will eat like 10 kg of cheese every day, right? There's a limit there.
Yeah. Do you face any challenges like obviously running a plant-based company in a completely dairy kind of environment where my granny used to literally get angry if I don't take ghee with my food. Like we are living in that kind of situation, right? So is it difficult to run a business where it is like dominated by all these dairy guys who, probably have too much of monopoly in the kind of industry, and obviously at the end of the day paying a lot of more taxes than the normal people? Is it?
I think there are several like systemic hurdles for plant-based dairy companies. One is taxation, right? Like our GST rates are so much higher than that of dairy rates. So that is one systemic barrier to selling. Like if the GST problem was circumvented, our milk could be 2 digits in MRP, not 3 digits as it is now, right? Like we're $120 a liter. So there's a lot we could do on the price front. I think like having a costlier product inherently means that not as many people can access it. Even when dairy is 50 rupees a liter, a lot of Indians don't buy dairy. They consume dairy from the animals that they're farming and then sell the surplus. That's sort of the model, right? So for an entire country to shift that perception, pricing and accessibility are like very key points of concern. And we're not able to find that right now, simply because of, dairy industry attracts subsidies by thousands of crores. And it also attracts lower taxation, which is a systemic problem for plant-based dairy to sort of overcome. The other problem right now, I think is last year or so, is that I think the regulator is looking a little more closely at thinking about whether plant-based dairy companies should call their products milk or curd, because they're saying all of this should only come from animals. So it's a little weird. Those are some barriers as well. Like if they pass that law, then it is going to simply make it a lot harder for the customer to understand that a plant-based milk can be used like milk. Like you can't call your product almond juice and then expect someone to put it in your coffee, it has to be called a certain way. So those are some barriers
in India. Like some things in India are so like, it's unnecessary drama, just try to make things like difficult for people. I don't know why. Like
it's also lobbyists, I guess.
Yeah, lobbyists, and it's crazy.
I think it's everywhere. I try to be not too sort of pessimistic about our industry right now and our infrastructure. I think one good thing about being in India is there are 1.5 billion people you can work with. There's a lot of impact you can do here, right? And I think very grateful for that kind of opportunity. And if you really want to do impact for the animals, especially, go to countries where animal products are rising in consumption. For example, in the United States or other countries, you're now seeing like declines in dairy consumption, right?
Correct.
Whereas India and a couple of other countries like maybe China, Southeast Asia, other countries that were historically not very high, GDP per capita. Now people have higher disposable incomes. So we're at this interesting like time in history where veganism as a movement exists, but also Indians have a higher purchasing power. So they're eating more dairy, they're eating more chicken, they're eating more meat. But there's also this movement that seeks to sort of reduce the consumption of those things.
Absolutely.
So, it's very interesting where it's not the case in the West, where I think, there's a steady decline.
Absolutely.
So it sort of correlates with the decline in animal product consumption leads to sort of a rise in plant-based consumption. In India, I think we're going to come to a point where plant-based is also growing quite a lot. And now the dairy industry is like a lot of unorganized parts of the dairy industry are now becoming organized. There's a lot more e-commerce, a lot more D2C going on in the dairy space, a lot more protocols for customer safety and so on. So I think it's just going to be, I think the next decade is going to be very interesting to see what really falls out of all of this. And hopefully, it comes to the, to the right side of history, but it remains to be seen.
Yeah. So that being said, are you thinking of expanding your business to these countries abroad, like since you find a bigger market there?
I mean, I'm tempted to do it, but it helps to be reminded that India has a lot of people here, right? And there's a huge massive population.
It's massive.
Yeah. And, I think building a business in India is inherently different from building a business elsewhere, because if I were to build a business in the United States, sort of similar to what GoodMylk is doing, I would start with one product, grow to $1 million in sales, then launch another product, grow to 10 million, right? In India, if you're running a D2C business, that's very hard to do because there's not enough depth in the market right now for at least plant-based products. So you need to have wider SKUs. You need to sort of set up your own distribution in many places. Like in Bangalore, like almost all of the deliveries we do are our own delivery boys, our own logistics infrastructure. So we've had to build out so many of these things. And I think the model would simply be different. So I'm a little concerned about how it would translate, even if you have the same products.
Correct.
But I do think a lot of what we've done is to build specifically for India and with Indian resources. So, we're going to focus on this for a little while, see what happens. And if you build a big business here, great, that's working.
Yeah. Once you have a successful business, like you can take it wherever you want. And it's up to you at the end of the day what you want to do with it. So fantastic.
Right. It actually shows in the business because like curd is your main product, and isn't curd one of your main products? If I'm not wrong.
Milk is our best-selling product. Our curd is very popular, yes, but our curd also has the refrigerated sort of transportation needed everywhere, right? So our milk, you can send it anywhere in the country because it's shelf stable at room temperature. We put it in like a UHT packaging where no preservatives and stuff, but you still get a long shelf life. So we can send it anywhere in the country, but our curd, we can't do that. So simply because of geographical availability, I think our milk is still continuing to be our best-selling product. My personal favorite is the curd anyway. Simply I can't use it. Like
even for us,
70% of my body is now curd.
Even for us, like everything's like curd. Being a South Indian, curd is just an integral part of like eating curd rice, eating that raita. That this is just part of your life, right? So curd. When we came to know, so one of our cousins, she owns a vegan ice cream company in Dubai. So she is completely into the vegan ice cream kind of a thing. It's called Artistry. So she's very keen and she's extremely involved in the vegan community. So I was vegan in Australia last year, and Abhi and I were thinking that we should become vegan, because we have researched a lot about the health benefits and what it does to the environment. And that's when she gave the GoodMylk peanut curd to us. We're like, wow, what is this? This is so cool. Because the only thing that you think about, right, being vegan is like curd. You need your curd. Like being an Indian, that you need your curd. So when she gave the peanut curd, you're like, oh, God bless whoever made this. Like, it's the best thing ever.
I still remember Abhi tasting it. He's like, Macha, this tastes exactly like your normal.
Yeah, I was like, huh? I was like, it's going to be a big difference. I thought there would be a big difference. And yes, a lot of vegan companies are there that they're trying to mimic the real taste of cheese and curd and milk and everything. But when I had the curd, I was like, bro, this is pretty cool, man. This is just the same. I'll totally have it. So congrats on making a good product. I have to put it out there that it's really tasty, and we are big fans, obviously. Yeah.
Thank you so much, both Abhis.
It's fantastic. Now, with the vegan food, right? There's also sometimes a misconception that yes, it is vegan, but sometimes it cannot be overly healthy because we're trying to find alternatives for everything. Now, sometimes there are some preservatives that are added. We don't know a few things that go into it. Like, how clean are the vegan kind of foods that are available in the market right now? Like, from your experience, what do you know from GoodMylk? And also, if you know something about the overall industry, how clean is it actually from a health point of view?
Right. That's a good question. There's a couple of ways to think about this, right? For example, on the milk packet, we see the ingredient is cow's milk. But what is cow's milk? It's water, milk, fat. it's a bunch of other things that make cow's milk, right? And then if every single one of those ingredients was laid out, we would probably think, okay, this doesn't seem very clean label. We would think it's weird. So even meat, for example, it's tendons, bones, muscle, flesh, blood, all of those things combined make meat. So if you see meat on the packaging, you're like, oh, okay, one ingredient I'll happily consume. But really, it's more. So with the opportunity with plant-based is that because you don't get like some single homogeneous liquid from a peanut, peanuts don't have udders. You have to make it. So, so that's when it looks like there's more ingredients. For example, with a curd, we have peanuts and water and live curds. It's very clean label in general. But I think with like, curd is like maybe say 80% hard to do. But there's like products that are like 99% hard to do. Like if you want to make a plant-based meat, or if you want to make a really complicated plant-based emulsion that animals like, even with animal products, you have to like do a lot of processing to get there. But where you can choose your protein with plant-based, you can choose your fat, you can choose your vitamins, you can choose your starch. So all of these combined will create a product that works like dairy. So it's sort of, it helps to look at it that way, I think. There's varying levels of clean label. For example, some companies use preservatives. We have preservatives in 2 of our products, but our future plan is to have 0 preservatives in all our products, right?
Yeah.
So in a milk curd, we don't have preservatives, but our shelf-stable butter and our mayonnaise is preservatives. So we're trying to like figure out how to do it without that, right?
Yeah.
But like we have to like first not be scared of the labels. Like when people say guar gum, it's like, oh, this is a scary name. What is gum and all? But but it's really just this is what the food industry decided would be the name 50 years ago, and it's like the powdered root or seed of some plant. And it's if you really look at where it comes from, it's not that scary. And like people see sodium benzoate, oh my god, what is this benzene and all? But it's it comes from apple seeds and fruits, So
okay. I mean, that makes sense now. Then okay.
Yeah. So it's not that scary if you really think about it. But I do agree that the perception of consumers today is to have like they want very clean sounding labels and stuff.
Exactly.
And we can do efforts in that direction, right? I think it's good to not have. Like I am sure I don't have a problem with preservatives per se, but if I have a product where there is it's a product the same cost, same everything, same taste, and one that has preservatives and the other doesn't have preservatives, I'll choose the one without preservatives simply because I also have my own perception. And rather than change customers' perception, which is another battle, right? How many battles can you fight? First is one, eat vegan products or eat more plant-based. Second, if I tell them more preservatives are good, all of this is good, then I'm fighting 4 or 5 battles, which I'd rather not do, as a matter of focus.
So in India, one is enough. Yeah.
Yeah, especially India, where I think what the dairy industry really did was they sort of put this aura into people that if you're having something cold and refrigerated and in like minimal packaging and with a cleaner label, it's good for you. There may be some truth to sort of fresher products having more nutrients, tasting better. Generally, if you cook something, you do destroy some nutrients. So there's like some sort of understanding of that. But there's some minimal level of processing needed to all food to make itself, including milk. You boil it, etc. Right? Yeah. So I digress. But I do think this industry has like multiple levels. Like version 1 is probably something that tastes like dairy but doesn't have a very clean label, and version 10 is like tastes like dairy, like 100% clean label. Low glycemic index, 0 allergens. All of these cool things that customers want today that we can incorporate into the product. But it may not be possible to do it today for every single product. Yeah. But I do think in 10 years, when science and technology evolves, 100%, we should be able to get to that.
Yeah. As the market opens up, there'll be more money coming in towards R&D and like other things coming up for sure, for definitely. I can see that happening in the future. Now let's address go
grains, on. Right?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry. Today it's like, if you think of plant milk, you only think of almond milk, oat milk, soy milk. But, have we tried like ragi milk? There's like a lot of indigenous grains in India and like around the world that we haven't really tried using in plant-based applications.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm willing to bet that there's like 5-6 ingredients out there and in the hundreds of thousands of plants available today that actually taste like milk and are completely clean label. So, it just depends on how much R&D you do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so just a matter of time.
Like oats milk and rice milk and all.
Oats milk, rice milk is there, and I've only seen oats milk, rice milk, almond milk, soy milk. Yeah, and cashew
coconut
milk.
Macadamia,
coconut, macadamia, cashew. Wow.
There's like 20, I think, hemp milk, sunflower milk, all sorts of weird. There's like a banana milk as well. And it's just, there's a lot of weird things in this space.
I think you can make milk out of anything.
Yeah. It's fantastic. No, just addressing the elephant in the room, climate change and the importance of a person's diet towards that. I mean, I'm sure being a vegan, we understand what impact the diet has on the climate change, and every person's action is very important. But can you explain to our audience how choosing a vegan diet changes the whole climate change topic, and what contributes in terms of meat industry and the whole seafood industry, how these things are linked to the bigger picture at the end of the day?
Sure. I think, it starts with a very basic sort of understanding that, all of us get our energy from the sun, right? Like plants take the energy from the sun, and then, we can consume plants directly, or we can have animals consume plants and then we can consume animals, right? And the more layers you add, the more inefficient it gets. So just in terms of resource consumption, it takes a lot more plants to be eaten by animals who will then be eaten by humans. It's a very inefficient chain. So, it starts with that, right? The animals need food, animals need water, animals need an environment to live in. They burp, they fart. And then when animals are finally slaughtered, aside from the whole ethical argument, which is that animals don't want to be slaughtered, keeping that aside as well, there's a transportation, packing, energy needed to send it to places and then finally be consumed. It's a very inefficient way to do it. A more efficient way, simply by first principles, is that eat plants directly, right? Sure, you may want to eat more diverse plants, and you may want to be careful about having a balanced diet that way, but it's a lot more efficient. I think that's sort of the basis of all of this. And there's different data points, right? So like cow's milk takes like maybe 1,000 liters of water, whereas like oat milk maybe takes like 100 liters of water. I'm not exactly sure I remember that number, but it's definitely a sizable difference. So, but I wouldn't say like just eating vegan alone like mindlessly changes our impact on the planet, right? For example, if I eat from Swiggy every day and like I order vegan meals from one place which is like 20 kilometers away, the packaging cost, the transportation cost to the environment, etc., that itself is sort of a net negative, right? And it's a whole factor. I think a lot of it is also how many kids are you going to have, how many international flights do you take? All this combined sort of, it has an impact on your net impact on the planet, right? I would say being vegan is one great way to start thinking more rationally about the world. And in general, it is better for the environment. But be conscious in general when you're doing all of this. I think it's one way to. And a lot of, I think, being vegan for me is it has let me think about these things. Whereas earlier I didn't have the desire to think, and now at least I have the desire to think about these things.
Yeah, and just be more sensitive to life around you, and just understand even they have a life of their own, and we are no one to like take their lives away. I think it's a very important thing. Yeah, exactly. I've read that, coming to your point, like 1 kilo of meat, 1 kg of meat takes, I think, 700 liters of water needed for 1 kilo of meat. And I don't know how many kgs of food on top of it. So all these things take up a lot of land and a lot of resources, and half the forests are getting converted. For example, the Amazon forest in Brazil is like, I think they are clearing out 100 football fields every minute or something like that worth of forest.
In the name of forest fires.
Yeah, in the name of forest fires and everything, to convert that to either, land for growing food for the dairy industry or the meat industry, or just, raising cattle in that land. So when we're talking, it's incredibly scary, like, where this is going, because if this continues, man, we're already screwed. Like 90%, if you've seen David Attenborough's, like, Our Planet, 90% of our mammals are already extinct. We just have probably 10 years to reverse things around. And if this is going to continue like this, I don't know
I think we've already reached the tipping point.
Yeah.
Just saying 5 years, 10 years.
Fucked. Yeah.
Like, even like thinking closer to India, right? Where we have 300 million dairy animals. We don't have enough land to support feeding those animals sustainably. You have to destroy forests to grow. Like a lot of the soya beans grown in India are fed to animals. A lot of the crops that we grow aren't for human consumption; they're for animal consumption. And how can we support 300 million cows in the country, right? I think we've sort of optimized in a very like short-term perspective for economic prosperity, but it has to really be managed with sustainable livelihood and sustainable lives. If not, I think we're going to come at a point where our food systems start to hit the breaking point. And sure, today we can cut off forests with impunity. We can like breed more animals with impunity, but we don't know where the breaking point is. A very complex system. But once it happens, it will be a collapse of the food system, and a billion people depend on it. So we should start implementing interventions now. And those of us who have the choice, right? I'm not saying go to the forests and then find people who hunt animals and then ask them to be vegan. I'm saying, you and me, we're in cities today. We go to Starbucks every day. We have the luxury of choice, and we can make choices that impact how businesses around the country think of where the demand is, etc. And they will switch to more sustainable practices, which we then in turn can figure out how to implement in the rest of the country. But it's sort of like a lazy person's way of thinking, like, okay, let everybody else go vegan first. Why don't you go talk to the farmer? Why don't you go talk to the butcher? I'm like, bro, I'm talking to you. You're accessible to me.
Exactly. Change everyone else before yourself.
The power.
That's so true. We have all the options, and like I'm pretty sure it was tough being a vegan like 5-6 years back, wasn't it?
Not in terms of options or like taste, like I think a lot of Indian food is vegan by default. I'm like a big South Indian food guy, right? So if you skip the curd, really, if you skip the ghee, and if you skip the butter, and ghee and butter aren't like necessary to make a lot of products, you just add it on top. Maybe curd is used to make some products. If you skip that or substitute it, right, it's very easy to like have your madhve uta like very comfortably, eat whatever you want, really. But I think the hard part for me was, like initially I couldn't find like-minded people, right? Like if you go vegan initially, if you're not really connected to the community, people can make fun of you. It can be hard if your own family makes fun of you. I think my parents, of course, they turned vegan first, so they were very supportive.
That's super
but
cool.
The rest of my extended family was not, right? And I was also pretty young. I was 13, my sister was 11. We didn't have our the kind of knowledge we do today, and we couldn't really argue with our relatives because we were older. We were also taught respect to relatives, things like that, right? So we felt, I think, at some point very lonely. Even in my PU college, I think I was the only vegan, of course, at that point. But some people make fun of you in school, and they say mean things. So that can be a little challenging for people who are going vegan, is that the lack of connect to community. But today, like, there's a lot of resources online where you can connect with like-minded people. So I think I think the challenge of being vegan in India might be loneliness, which now there's a lot of resources for people to access.
No, very well said. Actually, like thinking about it, if I had to go vegan alone, it would have been really tough for me, because I was big into like filter coffee, and I used to drink like 2-3 of those like every day. I was like, okay, I can skip ghee, I can skip curd, but I can't skip that filter coffee, But luckily my sister had come in, and Abhi had also come in from Australia, so we all decided, okay, we'll stop dairy and we'll stop curd and all this.
So now our thing is soy chai. We have soy chai every day.
That's
all day, every day. So that's what we
just had to give up on the filter coffee with milk.
Yeah, that's it. Where do you see this? Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Go on.
Okay, I'll say. Yeah. So I was just sort of pointing out that, like, drinking chai itself, none of you drink it for nutrition, right? You do it because it's a way to bond with family. It's a way to develop a habit that gives you joy. And I think, so if you're going out with your friends and they all choose like McDonald's, they're like, what's your options really besides fries, So that's sort of maybe challenging for some people. The social aspect of it, I think, is a challenging part. But now, like in other countries, like KFC has vegan options, McDonald's has vegan options.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's big, especially in Australia. It's huge. In Australia, like both of us were there, and right now, back in the day, like if you go to McDonald's or something, you will never find anything vegan. Like you probably won't even find vegetarian. Like, because it's just probably just fries that you'll probably get, But now they are advertising vegan burgers online, like on YouTube and everything, and it's like proper. They have a full vegan range because they know a lot more people are becoming vegan, and it's a big market opening up. So they want like to make money as well. So I think it's
that final barrier, which is that social barrier, gets fixed, and then it's much more easier for everybody to eat outside and just have their community.
Yeah, and vegan is catching up when a country like Australia, which is heavy on dairy and meat, shows ads of vegan food. So it's very promising actually to see, and it's pretty positive to see that things are like moving that way. And I hope the same thing happens in India as well. So, hopefully we can turn things around.
100%. I think ultimately when our movement will really become mainstream is when the bankers get aligned, the large corporates get aligned, right? I don't think anybody is inherently evil. Nobody wants to destroy the planet. I think beside like a very few weird people out there, I think the rest of the world really genuinely wants to do good things. But that's when we have to align the interests of money making with the intentions of doing good. Now these companies are having vegan options not because they suddenly became good people or suddenly became whatever different, right? They see a demand, they service it. Now, a lot of the world's largest investment companies, investment bankers are investing in plant-based companies. Yeah. So I think that is the tipping point where these bankers, the people who run our systems, really,
the big institutions,
once they became aligned, boom, we have what we need.
Would you start a mock meat kind of a thing anytime soon? Like, would you think about it? Because that would be a game changer as well, like in the industry, isn't it? Like, if you can make vegan meat, is that something that you are thinking of? Oh, okay, that's in the spoiler alert.
I can't give you any spoilers, but I can say this, right? Like, we are moving beyond like thinking about what specific form we want to be. Like animal protein, like I said earlier, the form of it can be milk, form of it can be meat, eggs, whatever. And we're also moving to sort of understanding that customers want what they want in the form they want it in. Our job is to simply provide it and make it affordable, accessible, tasty, whatever, right? So, as a company, we're evolving from thinking of just dairy to other things as well. Like we recently launched a plant-based meal replacement product where, if you put like 100 grams of that product in like 300 ml of water, you get like 25 grams of protein. Thunder, that's the one. Yeah. And you get all your daily, like 25% of your RD for all your nutrients, etc. It's not a dairy product at all, but it's a product that consumers want. Ultimately, I think we should be in the business of giving customers what they want. And, a lot of it happens to be plant-based meat, plant-based eggs, plant-based nutrition, whatever they want really. So I think as a company, we're becoming more and more amenable to that. Although I think we have a little bit of unfinished business in the dairy side. Like we said, we have a bunch of products that are not launched yet that you also want to see from us. So I think I'll be not doing my job if I don't launch those products first. But after that, we can, the sky is big, open and blue.
Fantastic. Cool. Do you have any last kind of comments for our audience? Something that you want to say in terms of just inspiring more people to take up a vegan lifestyle, or something that you think is important for the audience to know?
I think we've covered a lot. This is definitely fun and a really good experience talking to you too. If I like a parting message, maybe would be definitely start giving more of an active thought to what you're consuming every day, and you will get to the answers you get to. But I think the first step is to really start thinking about it versus mindlessly consuming. I think the world will be a better place if you start thinking about these things, and that's what I'd have to say.
Oh, fantastic! Super. Thank you so much, Abhay. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
thank you so much for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's fantastic.